G'day and welcome to the GameDay Squad NRL Fantasy Show. I'm Stu, that's Dill, and we are the Fantasy Bros. We're back again partnering with GameDay Squad to bring you all you need to know to succeed in GDS Rugby League this season. It's Wednesday, so you know what that means. Team List Tuesday has already dropped, and it's time to take a deep dive into our round 21 GDS squad. Still, we're getting to the pointy end of the season, mate, but still plenty to win in terms of weekly and season-long prizes. Speaking of which, how did the newly appointed King of Cups go in round 5 of the GDS Classic Cup?
Yeah, g'day mates, g'day viewers and listeners. What a ride this has been. Classic Cup and another victory there, another big win, I guess, for the Fantasy Bros as well. So I found myself in third place on the Classic Comp podium this week. So that's another win in the Classic Cup and a second 2025 All-Star card as well. So pretty happy with that. Looking forward to seeing those All-Star cards in hand. I also saw a bit of a jump up on that seasonal leaderboard for Classics. So I'm starting to push into that prize card territory range as well. But mate, I wasn't the only one that had success. I saw your name pop up on a couple of leaderboards as well. How'd you fare?
Yeah, mate, actually a pretty good week. If you consider my placings on those leaderboards, actually in the top 20 across all 4 comps. My first in the starter competition ever, which is pretty nice. But third in Challenger, fourth in Champion as well. I'm still ruining one sort of 50-50 decision that cost me a little bit, I think, and probably cost me a few extra football packs that you and I were both quite eager to open this afternoon. We'll let viewers know a little bit more about that very soon. But both climbing up those ranks, mate, and awesome to see that you're still alive. The GDS Cup will obviously be delving deep into your thoughts for the classic competition this week and seeing what your thoughts are around who you're going to spend your salary on, and maybe giving a little bit of insight. Let's see if your opponent is tuning in tonight to see who you are going to be starting or not.
It's always the concern, isn't it, that whoever I'm up against just gets a little bit of an insight into what I'm thinking and what I'm doing with particularly some of my salary. I think I talk about that a little bit, and particularly in something like Classic or even Contender, if you're a new player to the competition, that salary cap is super important and where you spend that. So we'll spend a bit of time talking about some of the options that you have there. But look, as always, you can see that both Stu and I, the Fantasy Bros, we're having some success and we continue to have success across a range of competitions. I know we talk quite a lot about our classic sides because of the Classic Cup, but you can see we're doing quite well across all areas. So please keep up with all of our expert tips. We come to you live every Wednesday night, so make sure you're subscribing to Fantasy Bros AU YouTube channel. We're also streaming live on Instagram and over on TikTok as well right now. Plus, you can catch us the following day recording of the show on Spotify. So just search at Fantasy Bros AU across all of those platforms so that you don't miss anything, because it could be the difference between a first and a fourth potentially, just like Stu there.
Absolutely, mate. And people can still get involved for these final 7 or 8 rounds of the season. There may even be a little finals competition as well. As always, new users can sign up on the app or via the website and type in the code FBRL25. That's FBRL25 for 3 9-player packs. And get your mates involved. We've got a new sport just dropped this week, and perfect time for them to get involved in that and finish the season of footy and try to knock Dill and I down those rankings on the weekly leaderboards. Speaking of which, Dill, what can you tell us about the brand new competition dropping today?
What I can tell you is I sat on the App Store for about 2 hours this afternoon trying to refresh to get the update there. The boys over at GDS have done a wonderful job. They have secured the Premier League into the competition, so they now have fantasy football as well of the soccer variety. If you are watching in Australia and you don't know what football is or which code football is referring to. So really excited there. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's almost one of the most excited I've been for a new release update of the app and of the game so far. I'm really looking forward to it. As you mentioned, we opened a few packs this afternoon, and we've also got a bit of a pack potentially tonight for someone as well. So anyone that comments on the show tonight, we're going to open a 3-player pack, and one of those or 3 of those cards will be yours. We're also, I think, going to head over to the GDS Discord stage a little bit later after the show, and we might open a few more packs as well live. So jump across to Discord if you aren't already part of it. Just search the GDS Discord Game Day Squad, get involved, and we can rip some packs together. It'll be a bit of fun.
Spot on. Cannot wait for that. And if you thought that we were going to have a bit of an off season after the footy, think again, because I think we're going to be playing Game Day Squad all year round, thanks to the new football competition. Cannot wait. We got Michael Cozzi saying, well done, Dill, on your another cup win. And Cal just echoing what he says just about every single week about the cup specialist who cannot be beat. I think, Cal, we need to organise something pretty special if something does happen and Dill does get knocked off, because someone who takes that mantle away from him will be a very special coach indeed. All right, Dill, enough of the pre-show chat. Shall we get into previewing our positions for round 21?
Yeah, let's jump straight into it. As always, we're going to start at the top of the list and we're going to look at our hookers. And again, we've got a range of hookers that are some really great options. But look, we're going to get a bit boring and just go with that tried and true method of Blake Brayley at the moment. He's just been unreal again. He continues to impress across pretty much all areas of the park. You know, we spoke probably 2 months ago about the need for him to increase his running meters, and he's really done that. He's increased his running meters, but as a result, he's also increased those tackle breaks, line breaks, try assists, etc. that we really want from him. So it's been really great to see. And I saw an article today. He's might even shop himself around to a few clubs now that he's had a little bit more success. And I think in the article they even referred to him as a future Origin player. And the way that he's playing at the moment, definitely I could see that there. Look, the other thing that I think the big thing for me is that Brayley comes up against the Rabbitohs, who, look, the Rabbitohs side probably looks more like a New South Wales Cup side rather than a true tried NRL side. So in the last month, they've just lost so many players, and as a result, they've allowed so many points to be scored from a fantasy perspective. They allow opposition hookers an average of 51.5 GDS points across the last month, which is leading the competition for the most points allowed to the hookers. So I think it's a pretty easy decision this week. I don't think there's going to be too much variation across most people's teams. So it could be an opportunity there where you might pot up with a bit of salary, and play maybe a higher rarity of Blake Brayley, knowing that a lot of coaches are probably going to stick with him.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the salary, but you've definitely shown some of your cards there already. I think, he's super safe in that position, which has been really tricky all season. And look, he went from being a really consistent sort of 50-point player through 50 points in tackles, but now he's adding 100 running meters, and he's averaged that for the last 6 weeks as well. And that's not just an extra 10 points to his score of, his 45 to 50 tackles. He's getting a lot of tackle breaks. He's getting some offloads. He's getting a lot of try involvements and tries himself. And that's just the reason why he's head and shoulders above the rest of the hooking competition at the moment. I think he's a fantastic selection. And if you're still alive in that Classic Cup, or if you want to get nice and high up there on the Classic leaderboards or the contender leaderboards, I think putting some high amounts of salary in Blake Brayley is certainly a smart way to go about things, given the matchup, given his form. And like you mentioned, he's asking for a bit of a pay rise, some increased salary, or he may be being shopped around. So he's going to want to prove his worth and continue this run of form for the rest of the season to show he is worth that extra money. And look, he's already wearing a sky blue jersey there at Cronulla, and he wouldn't look out of, he certainly wouldn't look out of place in a slightly different shade of blue 3 times next year as well.
Yeah, definitely, and he would be rewarded with that if he earned that jersey. The other player potentially I'd be looking at, if maybe you don't own a Brayley card or you want to go somewhere a little bit different, is probably potting up with maybe a Harry Grant. I think he's a good option. Look, on paper, it always looks like a tough matchup between the Storm and the Roosters. But the Roosters really have struggled for the last month or so of footy again. They've given up an average of 48.2 GDS points to opposition hookers, which is 10 more points than the previous season average that the Roosters have given up. So there's obviously a vulnerability there through the middle in particular, especially over those sort of that origin period. But there's obviously a vulnerability there that we know will definitely exploit, and so there's a potential option for him as well to have a big game. So I wouldn't put it past coaches if they wanted to get on someone like Harry Grant. We've obviously seen some down games from him, but he's sort of finding his form again. So that's another option if you don't have a Brayley, or you just want to play something a little bit different and maybe try and get ahead through a different player.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about some Storm players shortly in some other positions, but the big points of interest about the Storm is no Ryan Pappenhausen again, but also no Cam Munster. He'll be attending the funeral of his father. So, look, the Storm have a couple of big names out, but there's only one game to go by in terms of Harry Grant playing this season without Cam Munster. He got a try assist in that game, only played the 63 minutes backing up from Origin. So it's not a lot to read into for that, but you would expect both he and Jerome Hughes to have to shoulder a bit more responsibility, given, Cam Munster and Ryan Pappenhausen will be out. So, yeah, perfect opportunity to pot up there for the likes of Harry Grant. We've got Mel in the chat. G'day, Mel. Thanks for joining us once again. And she thinks that Cal is trying to jinx you. Maybe he doesn't want the face of the NRL show loading up on prize cards and GDS Cup in the trophy cabinet. He wants to share the love around to the rest of the community, trying to jinx you any way he can.
Yeah.
And we got Ryan P in the chat as well. Looking forward to some good information tonight, boys. Funny story about Ryan P. Do you want to quickly share that before we move on to the middles?
He won't think it's a funny story, but we certainly think so. Monday morning, 8:30 rolls around. He comes into work and he shows us that he's top of the leaderboard for contender. He's fist pumping and celebrating. And then we see the message from Tom over on the Discord to say, hold your horses. We've got a scoring issue with the Raiders game. And Ryan got a bit nervous. And then fast forward about 8 hours later, and he's dropped down to about 20th on the leaderboard, all because of that one little scoring concern. So he's pretty upset about that. So he's looking ready to get some revenge on a few of those coaches that ended up pipping him at the post.
Sorry, mate, had to bring that up just because your name is this AFL. Yeah, not funny at all, he says. There you go. Some of us found it funny, unfortunately. Yeah, for him, he did not. Michael Cozzy, yeah, Blake Brayley. He has been in the Emerging Blues camp before, so he has been recognised by the coaching staff there. But it looks like 2026 might be his year if that run of form continues. Still, not many questions need to be asked about the middle position. For me, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to be running three of these blokes. Are you in the same boat?
Exactly the same, mate. The big three are back. So we've got May, Haas and Yo back to how we like it. Nice and simple. I think they're set and forgets, and we don't really need to analyse them too much further. And as you said, we're playing those three. That means that we're going to have those four edges that offer a little bit more upside from some of those players on our bench, or two on our bench and two on the field. If I was looking to have another middle, I'd probably be looking at Aaron Clark. He's probably got the best matchup against his former club. They've allowed 41.6 to all middles in the last month. So he's probably got the best matchup possible. We talked last week about King versus White. It ended up being, I think, a point or two difference between them. They were both hovering around that 50. I guess Clark's probably got a little bit more upside playing for the Warriors, who are looking pretty good, albeit they had a struggling match against the Knights, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about that exciting finish a little bit later. But yeah, I think Clarkie's probably just got a little bit more upside than King or White, so I'd probably be going him if I was looking for that fourth middle.
Yeah, 60 minutes, 58 minutes in the last two for Aaron Clark. In his awesome run of form mid-season, he was getting 64, 69, 65, 72 minutes. So it's clear that his work rate or his workload has been reduced slightly. Maybe that's just, him being managed through this part of the season before finals, or, if his body is taking a bit of a toll on that massive workload. But yeah, look, the 58 and 60 minutes aren't great reading for someone who's going at about that point a minute. I'd love to see him, back at those 66, between 66 and 70 minutes. That would certainly put him in much closer pick territory for me. But I like those three you mentioned. Out of May, Haas and Yo, if you had to sort of put a bit of extra salary on one of those three, which one would you do in your Classic Cup side and why?
I'm leaning more towards probably Payne Haas and Tyrrell May. They probably just have, again, that little bit more upside than Isaiah Yo. We've sort of seen a couple of down games from Isaiah Yo over the last probably 2 or so months. I just think they, in terms of tackle breaks, in terms of offloads, in terms of potential try upside, I think May and Haas probably are that little bit better for me. So I'll probably be looking to put some salary on those. Whether that's a gold or a silver, it probably just comes down to how sort of the rest of the makeup is with your Classic side. And then contender, I'd probably be looking at maybe a gold for one of them at least. Just not having the special cards that you can use in Contender means you've probably got a few more options there with how you might spread your salary. So yeah, for me, it'll be one of those two, if not both, if you can do that.
Yeah, both gold medals there in Contender look like a great option for me. Payne Haas hasn't played for the Broncos since round 17, so he's clearly well rested. He scored that big 100-point game in just 58 minutes coming back from Origin when everyone thought that he was done for the day. He made 40 tackles, 200 running meters. I feel like there might be something similar in store today, this weekend, against the poor Parramatta Eels. Yeah, I think Payne Haas is in for a massive one. And look, Terrell May just keeps on getting it done, and a try assist last week is pretty handy as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Matt P says that Aaron Clark seems to keep cramping up in his second stint. Yeah, so maybe that body is taking a bit of a toll on that workload. So maybe getting a few extra minutes there just to rest and recover. You'd expect, any sort of close, tight game that he'd be getting some bigger minutes. And yeah, he's going about a point a minute. But for me, we're going to look for a bit more upside there in the edge position, mate. And that's where we are now. For me, there is probably any of these 6 blokes, and there's probably 2 or 3 more that would come into real consideration this week as well. I think the edge position is really open. We've got the return of Haumole Olakau'atu. He's playing in the very last match of the round. I think the Dogs and Manly are right at the end, aren't they? Mm-hmm. And yeah, you'd hate to have maybe a late out or something there, touch wood. But I'm always hesitant about blokes returning from injury. I'm pretty sure I get it wrong almost every single time where I say, oh, look, I just want to watch him, see how he goes. And then he pumps out, a massive score. I think that happened 3 or 4 times in the cricket season, and it's happened a number of times here in the rugby league season already. So let's start with him. Is he someone that you are looking to play this week? He's got the Dogs matchup. He's returning from that injury, and there's still some likelihood of, that shoulder. He didn't get surgery on it. That's probably going to happen in the off season. And without surgery on that shoulder, there is a small, likelihood of redoing that and it coming out again and the rest of his season being over.
Yeah, I am going to take the risk on him with the thought behind it being if he is ruled out late, then it's probably an easy play to go both Kickout and Preston as options because I feel like then there might be some more opportunity for Kickout. We've sort of seen him do quite well over on the left side, obviously, for the Dogs over the last few weeks, and he continues to have that sort of consistent form. So I'm not too concerned if there is a late out, but I think the upside of Olakau'atu is much greater than the risk that you're going to take with playing him. Obviously, the shoulder could be a concern, but we haven't seen him since round 15. He finished that game 61 minutes and he had a score of 24. Before that, he notched up scores of 69 and 104. So some massive efforts. And it's not just through base stats. We know that he's got all of that attack with him as well. But the thing that I like is that he does offer 50 plus in base and power. So we know that he's gonna reach that, whether it's the running meters and the tackle breaks and a few tackles there as well. I sort of expect as well the Manly right side just is probably the most dangerous of any right side in the competition. So I really expect them to have a big game here. Dogs have allowed an average of 42 points to right edges in the last month. So I feel like if Ola doesn't score, I expect him to probably at least set one up. And then that just adds to his ceiling there with the 50 plus in base and power. So I don't think it's a calculated risk, if anything, if we're going to say that, yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about the returning from injury, but he's had quite a bit of time off. And so hopefully he's ready to go. I still stand by the fact that if these players aren't ready to go, they're not 100%, then the coach wouldn't go and put them out there, particularly when you're getting really close to that finals and you're sort of in the 8 out of the 8. And you want to probably give them another week if you feel like they're not quite ready. So I think from that perspective, I think Olakau'atu is probably a good shout. And then, as you said, there's 3 or 4 other blokes on that list that I would definitely look at. The one that I think we're both going to sit quite firmly on is Hutto Young. And the thing I love, there's 2 things I love about Hutto Young. One of them is that his output and his attacking upside is just ridiculous. The second is Hoskins had a few big games the last couple of weeks. He outscored Hudson Young last week by about 5 or 6 points, I think. So it may mean that coaches might look at Hosking and look to play him instead because of those big performances. However, we know that Hudson Young is just an absolute base stat beast with that attacking upside on top. He's averaging 146 run meters, 30 tackles, and 4 tackle breaks per game. It's 56 points in base and power alone. So you add to that his 8 line breaks he's made this season, the 10 tries that we've talked about throughout the season so far. I think it doesn't matter what the data says around his matchup. I think he's the one to play each and every week, and until we see something otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the only edge forward they're averaging in the 60s, albeit it's only 0.38, 60.38. But that number there is pretty good, and showing you just how much of a dominant season he's having. He's second in tackle breaks behind that man you spoke about first, Haumole Olakau'atu, who has played one less game than Hudson Young, but still racked up an extra 12 tackle breaks. So that tackle breaking ability is undeniable. If you run him out, you're expecting to get quite a few points just through those tackle breaks, and he's always dangerous close to the line. I don't mind a Hudson Young and Zach Hosking dual play this round. I'm not currently doing it myself, although Hosking, I think, will find himself into one or two of my teams. Big reason for that is obviously Seb Chris out and Simi Sasangi named in the centres, meaning Hosking sometimes doesn't play the full 80, and he only played 68 in the weekend just gone. Some of that time was spent through the middle, where he got a few extra tackles than he might normally make out on the edge. But just about guaranteed to play 80 on that right edge, with Sasangi staying in the centres for the match and playing outside Jamal Fogarty there on the right. He's always a chance of scoring. He chases kicks just about as good as anyone else in the competition, playing in the back row, like Katoa, like Olakau'atu. And he'll get his 35 tackles, his 100 run meters, a couple of tackle breaks and offloads. He's a really safe player, I think, out on that right edge. And if the odds are anything to go by, the Raiders being $1.20 and looking huge favourites, and you think they're going to score plenty of points, there's every chance you can see a couple of points on either side of the field. And just in case Hutto is stifled of the attack and he's not scoring tries, then there's every chance that the tries are being scored on the other side of the park, and Hosking might be amongst them. So I think there might be a little bit more safety in someone like Hosking, but probably not the same level of attacking upside that a Haumole Olakau'atu brings. So some coaches might need to weigh up there. Are they looking for a bit of safety, but maybe not a huge ceiling, but probably negate some of that risk in playing someone returning from injury? So plenty of questions here in that edge forward position.
And then the other two that I'm looking at, and one of them I'm a little bit concerned about, and that's Jacob Preston. He's had a couple of down games, from his fantasy standards. So I'm a little bit concerned about playing him. He comes up against Manly, who have allowed a few more points to the right edges over the last month in 41 versus their season average of 38. So there's definitely some opportunity there. They've been a little bit more vulnerable, that side. It's obviously a big game, Manly and the Dogs. Manly are really looking to solidify their spot in the top 8. The Dogs are really trying to push for that minor premiership spot still. And I just feel like maybe that combination that we talked about last week in Galvin and Preston, and then outside of them in terms of Critter and Karaz, maybe just needs a couple more weeks. And maybe we see it this week and maybe we don't. I guess the thing to fall back on, if that attack is still a little bit disjointed, at least Preston's base and power is still high enough that I will include him in my side. But I guess that sort of attacking upside that we loved in Preston earlier in the season has sort of disappeared at the moment, just while the Dogs are trying to work out their halves pairing, plus they're sort of going through this roller coaster phase of some really low scoring games, some really tight tussles, and really just comes down to the defensive work. So I would love to see some really high upside for Preston, but I think we just got to temper our expectations a little bit with that sort of partnership in Galvin, just probably needing a few more weeks, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right with that partnership. It's been a bit of a frustrating watch. He's so reliable with his base stats, and his attacking upside is huge as well, but it just hasn't been happening. Just those last two games with Galvin, it sort of coincided with two of his lowest scores for the season, really. Yet he's still averaging mid 55s, and you'd look at his last two scores and go, who is this bloke? I wouldn't even, consider starting him when we've got other blokes knocking out 50s and 60s at will. But you're right. That combination has to click at some point. Doggies, aren't really putting 2 or 3 wins back to back as often as, a dominant side in the top 2 or top 4 should be doing. So they'll really want to go on a bit of a run here into the finals and, prove to the competition that they're the real deal this season. And I think you're right. That might take a bit of time for the Galvin Preston combination to click, but look, the Critter and Carraz combination outside of that is fantastic. They're on fire.
Yeah.
There's no reason why Preston can't feast as well. So yeah, he's not a huge worry for me. I think some players who leave him out, that could come off nicely for them if the combination takes another week or two to click along. But you don't want to miss that week where he gets a couple of short balls close to the line, or sets up his outside men for one or two and has a whole heap of base to boot as well. You'll be kicking yourself that you didn't have him in your team. It just happens with blokes like Jacob Preston. Look, it also happens with blokes like Eli Katoa. Looks like a bit of a tough matchup there on paper with the Roosters. It's going to be a really nice Thursday night battle, I think. We've spoken already about the Storm being a little bit low on troops. They're without Ryan Pappenhausen, without Cam Munster. But for me, that just means there's plenty of footy going to go down the right-hand channel. That means Jerome Hughes is going to get his hands on the footy a lot. And he knows just how dangerous Eli Katoa is there on his right. Jerome Hughes is going to kick the ball plenty of times as well. That'll be close to the line with the little grubber in behind, and plenty of bombs there as well. And Eli Katoa has been the man in the air and chasing kicks over the last 6 or 8 weeks, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him cash in there as well. He's got a really big matchup there with Angus Crichton on the left for the Roosters, but that little man Sammy Walker, Eli Katoa, I think, will be licking his lips when he's got the footy, gets some nice early ball, and sees Sammy Walker in front of him, or see Sammy racing up out of the line. So, yeah, look, Eli Katoa, probably someone a bit like Preston. Plenty of safety there, about some decent base. He just needs to click with the half inside him, get some nice early ball close to the line, and look, he's as good as anyone at finding gaps or crashing over and scoring. And he's had a habit of scoring some tries in patches as well, and he's in a bit of form.
Yeah, and I guess the thing we look at is you go to last week and have a look at, and we talked about that combination of Hughes and Katoa. If Hughes goes well, then surely Katoa will go well. Hughes had a massive game and scored 71 points. I don't feel like he did a huge amount, though, and he still scored 71 points. He had 1 try assist through the kick. And Katoa still ended up with 43 himself without doing a huge amount either. So I still think there's plenty of upside there for those two. And I think this is a perfect time up against the Roosters. As you say, Sammy Walker loves to miss a tackle or two. The other thing, if you go back to Katoa's previous 3 weeks before last week's game, he's averaging 65 GDS points, which is a massive 14-point increase on the rest of his season. So he's obviously stepped up that game, just like we've talked about a lot of Storm players have. So, yeah, I have no issue with Katoa as well. But you're right, he's probably in that sort of same boat as Preston, where at the moment there's just a little bit of a down, but we're hoping for some ups. And I think there's plenty of opportunity for both to have some big upside this week. There's also a big opportunity for Mel to be maybe fan of the year for the Fantasy Bros.
Yep.
She said, I left my cousin's wedding reception to make sure I didn't miss too much of this show. Sorry, Sam. Guessing that's her cousin, but also he did get married on a Wednesday. Yep. Mel, maybe what you should do is go back into the reception, get your phone to screen mirror up onto the live screen so we can have the whole wedding reception follow along, and they can join GDS just in time for the rest of this season plus the football season. Good on you, Mel. Thank you for joining us tonight.
And while you're at it, let them know that they can use that sign-up code FBRL25 and get them ripping some packs at the wedding. I'm sure Sam will love that, and that'll be a reminder to everyone. Don't schedule a wedding when the Fantasy Bros are going live to talk about their rugby league team. Yeah, thanks, Mel. That's unreal. Good on you. You wouldn't miss it for the world. Not only has she left her cousin's wedding, but she also joined us in the early hours of the morning when she was traveling overseas as well.
Yeah, it's commitment.
They wouldn't
commitment.
let me,
I love
so
it.
she left. There you go. All righty. Let's talk some halves, mate. Now, we've already spoken a little bit about Jerome Hughes. Let's just continue that discussion on him. I think he's in for a big one. I have looked into the numbers, and it seems that he has a lot more responsibility, obviously, when Munster isn't there. And it's not just getting the ball in the hands, but it's also through his kicking as well. 550 kick meters in the past 2 matches without Munster alongside him. It's 340 with Munster. So straight away, there's an extra sort of 200 and a bit kicking meters. That's 7 or 8 points just for taking the field without Munster next to him. His running meters, they also increase from 80 to 115 too. So there's another 3 or 4 points. With those running meters also come tackle breaks, offloads, line breaks, tries, you name it. So there's already, a case to say 10 or 12 points in Hughes's favour just when Munster doesn't take the field because he has to shoulder a bit more of responsibility. Yes, the matchup maybe on paper doesn't look as good there against the Roosters. It's the Thursday night. It's the start of the week. We don't know if we want to, use up a half position in the first game. But no, I really like the play. And I think we've got a number of really good half options this week. And you might be able to get a bit of a jump on your opposition if you play a Hughes early Thursday night. And that trend sort of continues where he does take a lot more responsibility without Munster. Which way are you leaning in the halves battle at the moment?
Yeah, Hughes is one that I'm really keen on, but at the moment I don't have him on my side, and it's probably the most concerning position that I've got at the moment, because if you look at the list that we've got there, firstly we can see that the GOAT of rugby league, of NRL, is back in Nathan Cleary, so that's obviously a big in. We've also got Hines, who is in starting to get in some great form for this season. I'll talk a little bit more about Hines up against the Rabbitohs in a moment. So yeah, and then Fogarty up against the Knights. Fogs has been averaging 60 points plus the last month, and then he comes up against the Knights, who he played in round 7, and he scored 63 against them, and didn't do a huge amount in that game. He didn't have a try assist. He didn't have a try. He just made his tackles. He got his kicking meters up over 600. So I think there's plenty of opportunity for him to go big, because we know that his base stats are there around that 60 points, and then he's got an opportunity for a few try assists as well. So for me, I'm just leaning on Jamal Fogarty at the moment over Hughes, but it's really a flip of the coin. I think both players will have a big game, and it might end up just coming down to the vibe of it at the end of the day for me, and that's something I hate using in fantasy football. But it might be that I just might go with Hughes, because I've sort of been on him a few times, but then I don't know, Fogarty's just looking so good, and obviously the Raiders are looking good as a result, and you're really pushing for that top premiership spot at the moment. So yeah, that's my struggle. Is there any data that you can give to me that might suggest I shouldn't get on Jamal Fogarty, or are you sort of in the same boat and having that struggle as well?
Yeah, no, I think if we're just playing the one game day squad competition, the decision becomes a lot harder, and it's maybe closer to a flip the coin decision. But because we can, spread out some of these really close decisions across a couple of teams, my advice would be, look, whatever the gut's stronger on, and in your case, it just sounds like Fogarty at the moment, probably prioritize a Fogarty card in the one or two competitions that you're putting, more time, more effort, you're putting more weight into yourself, and then maybe just for some sanity reasons, just in case Hughesy has a massive game on Thursday night, and you want to have a decent sleep Thursday night, and not worry about what could have been. Maybe slotting him into a team or two as well might be the way to go. Look, I don't think there'll be too much between them. I'll definitely be playing Fogarty in at least one of my sides, probably the champion side, given I've got a version of Fogarty no one else in the game does. So that comes with a pretty easy play for me. But yeah, in the classic competition, I'm going to look to plug a Jerome Hughes in there. But yeah, I think, look, there's not going to be a lot of difference. We could talk on the show tomorrow, next week, that there was 1 or 2 points between them.
Yeah.
And it didn't really end up which one you played. I think they're both pretty safe. I just like the fact that, Jerome Hughes does have a lot more responsibility without Cam Munster. The Storm lost at home against Manly last week in a match that they really should have won. So you can imagine, the training would have, been pretty tough this week, but they'll certainly be up for Thursday's match against the Roosters. You can't really see a Storm side putting in, 2 pretty poor performances, but in back-to-back weeks, particularly a Storm side, who are really premiership favourites still, and every chance to join Canberra there at the very end of the season in the grand final.
Mate, you know who else are premiership favourites, and that is the Penrith Panthers, who I think we wrote off at about round 8 or 9. I think we said this is their season on the line, and they've really turned it around, and Cleary coming back in is just massive. The question really isn't about do you play Nathan Cleary, it's about how much salary or what rarity you're going to place and spend on him, particularly in that classic and contender. If I was playing contender, I would probably just go straight to the highest rarity and go that gold Cleary. And I think I'll be doing something similar in my classic team. And I think it's becoming one of my favorite pod plays in GDS now. I don't know whether I call it the salary pod or the rarity pod, but I think I want to trademark that term, that there's maybe the salary pod. I think that sort of rolls off the tongue better, where you pod up just purely based on playing a higher rarity player and using more of that salary cap because you know that everyone else is going to. So you've got that advantage there by 5, 6, 7, 10 points potentially, depending on that rarity that you play.
Yeah, it's just that multiplier bonus, isn't it? That you play the platinum or even the diamond in a classic competition, and someone who goes a little bit safer and just plugs in a gold. You're playing the same player, but you're going to come out better in terms of total points. They obviously have a couple of extra 100,000 in salary for another position, but look, when you're talking someone with the upside of Nathan Cleary, who can score hundreds for fun, that's where you want to jam plenty of salary on. The only hesitation that I'd have with putting a whole heap of salary, maybe a plat or a diamond in a classic competition, would be that he's obviously been battling some injuries recently. It was promising that he did come off the bench and have a really good second half against Para, and then was rested. So, by all reports, he should be fit and firing and ready to go. But there is still some discussion about Dylan Edwards continuing to have that kicking tee at least for another week or two. And that would imply that there is still some, doubt around Cleary's fitness and how he's managing that upper leg injury. So if, there was confirmation that he was fit and firing, he had the kicking tee. Look, this matchup with the Tigers is unreal. There's been some heated battles between these two of late, and his old mate or a few of his mates are over there at the Tigers now, and he'll certainly want to be getting one up over there against Jerome Luai. So, yeah, I think a massive night from Nathan Cleary. If he's got the kicking tee, load up that salary and enjoy what it gives you.
Yeah, and just on the Tigers-Panthers battle, they did battle earlier in the season, round 14, and Cleary scored 70 or 69.13 in GDS there. So, if that's 70 points and you're looking at a gold versus a platinum or a bronze versus a gold, then, there's an extra 10 points there potentially for you. So that's definitely an option that you can play. And considering that classic leaderboard last week only had a few variances across the top 4 or 5, then that 10 points could be massive. Look, the last player that we'll quickly talk about in the halves is my man, Nicho Hynes, and it's finally time we can talk about him again. We briefly touched on him last week after his 100-point game, and I said I didn't want to go near him to follow that massive game, and it wasn't a bad option. He did end up being that 4th ranked half behind the 3 that we did play last week. So I was pretty happy that we'd made the right decisions, but there wasn't much in it. There was a couple of points here or there. So again, it wasn't a bad decision. But Hynes up against the Rabbitohs. We've already mentioned the Rabbitohs are in all sorts. The list of injured players includes Kalonga Matangi, Latrell Mitchell, Campbell Graham, Murray, Walker, Malmas Ellis, Brandon Smith, and David Moali. Like that there is a pretty decent side on their own. So I think that the Sharks are really going to just run riot over this Rabbitohs side, and I think Nicho's going to have a big part of that. He's returned to form in terms of fantasy perspective, and I think it'll just keep rolling on. The good thing as well, the Rabbitohs have been pretty consistent, giving up 42, 43 points to right halves across the season. However, the last 2 weeks, we've seen DCE and Schneider, of all people, scoring 52 or more GDS points against them. So I think, Hynes has still got that sort of 50-plus average over the last month outside of his ton. But I think there's an opportunity here for him to just go bananas and have a massive game and, find that form again like he did a couple of weeks ago.
Gee, that tells you all you need to know, doesn't it? Schneider scoring 52 points against the same side. Look, every week the draw comes out or we get to reset our teams for GameDay squad. I check who's playing against the Rabbitohs and look to start thinking about who I'm going to be loading up from that side. And look, Nicho Hynes is a no-brainer. If he's not scoring the tries, he's probably got a hand in setting some of them up, but he's every chance to go up in threes as well when he's kicking conversions. We expect, similar levels of base, but a much increased attacking upside. And we saw him score a couple of tries back to back and hit 100. There's no reason why he can't have a really good match again. So yeah, not too tricky there, plugging Hynes into plenty of our sides this week. Mate, what I have found tricky is the center position.
Yes.
Now we're down on a number of troops without Herbie Farnworth due to the bye. We've got some names on the screen that we haven't really spoken about at length or really even featured this season. But there are 6 decent options there on the screen. And look, you could probably simulate this 10 times and you'd get a different outcome of who's going to get the most points. I think we've got a really interesting decision here with centers. Which way are you leaning?
Yeah, it's such a tough call, and there's, like you said, there's some names there that we're not really used to. I think I'm just going to take a little bit of safety in Garrick, and I don't even know if that's a huge amount of safety at the moment. Maybe it is a bit more of a risk. Obviously, on paper, it looks like a big matchup and a tough matchup, between the Seagulls and the Dogs. But the Dogs have been up and down in the past month. But it's been their strong defensive efforts, I think, that has really saved them in most games. The Dogs have been vulnerable, though, particularly the defensive efforts against the left side attack. So left wingers have averaged 10 more points in the last month compared to the rest of the season against the Doggies. And that average is close to 50 points for left wingers. So there's limited options across the park in that centre spot. So I think I'll take that sort of calculated risk in going, well, Garrick has a really fantasy favourable matchup. He's got a really fantasy likable game in terms of what he can offer with his stats, not to mention the goal kicking as well. So I think I'm just going to play that and take a little bit of a calculated risk compared to some of those other players on that list there, that the matchup data might not necessarily suggest they're going to have a good day out. There's not a lot of matchups really there that I like too much. Meaney at fullback against the Roosters, it does look all right, but the Roosters have limited fullbacks to only 27 points in the last month or so of football. So Meaney's been, had some big games the last few weeks, but he might just have a down game in this one. And then another option is either Best or his teammate in Gagai, who lines up at fullback again. However, they're playing the Raiders, and we know the Raiders defend across the park, and in particular the centre and the fullback position really well this season. So I think I'm going to look at Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, who I haven't really looked at too much this season. It's not someone that I've really considered, but looking at his stats, he's actually gone along quite nicely. He's sort of hitting that 50-ish average across the season, and then he's seen a bit of a uptick in fantasy stats over the last few weeks. He's had a score of 45 and then a back-to-back 50 plus of 53 and 56. So most of his points are coming through base and power, which we like to see. However, he does average one line break per game and then one try every 2 games. So he's certainly got that upside. And then obviously the Warriors had almost a horrible ending to that game last week against the Knights that really they shouldn't have even played the game based on the reports coming out of the captain's run, where I don't think anyone was available. And the Knights really turned up and put the Warriors almost to the sword, but it was just a bit of luck and a bit of skill from Leka Halasima to make sure that we got the win. But I think the Warriors traveling back home, they'll want to have a big game and remind people why we're sort of sitting in the top 8 and within that reach of top 4. Look, also the Titans are pretty horrible in defence, really, and their woes are only getting worse. It sounds like Desi's on his way out potentially. It doesn't sound like he's too far away. So I think RTS will probably have a big game along with a number of Warriors players.
Yeah, I'm with you there on RTS. Someone who, hasn't really been considered in a team for me this season. But another team I look for in addition to the Rabbitohs is the Titans and who's playing up against them each week and seeing which players from that team that you can plug in. Look, RTS will be playing on the wing for the Warriors there, but I think that's a good position for him. We saw Taylor May have a really big score on his return to the NRL, and Jarrell Skelton scored 2 tries outside him there against the Titans last week. So there's every chance that the Warriors do something really similar and can score plenty of points over on that left-hand side of the field, and that's exactly where RTS is going to be. So 250 meters back-to-back for RTS. He's got some serious try-scoring upside in a week that's pretty difficult for the position. Yeah, I really like him, and he may even end up being a bit of a pod play with a few other pretty decent options that you've already run through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Who's the second player then that you're looking at outside of Garrick?
Yeah, it's Gagai at the moment. I don't think the matchup really matters for someone who plays his football like Dane Gagai. He scored a really big score in his first game at fullback against the Storm, and then he scored a pretty handy score there against the Warriors last match as well. But he gets all of those points through his runs and his tackle breaks. He's running for close to 250 meters as well, and he almost every time beats that first defender, whether it's from a kick or just taking a hit up off the ruck. It just seems like he can get slipped by that first defender, and he's just someone that rips in for the full 80 minutes. It might not be pretty, he might not be the most creative fullback and set up the best tries, but he's always supporting. he's always running the ball at 100%, and because of that effort comes plenty of tackle breaks. Look, if the Raiders are going to be vulnerable, it just feels like this sort of game is the one that can get them. It just always seems to be the games that you expect them to win. We saw what happened when they were half asleep against the Eels for the first 40. They were looking pretty poor. The Eels were up at halftime, and look, if we see any repeat of that in the first 40 this week, or even for longer, Dane Gagai, it's not like the Knights are a poor team. They're really damaging there down the left-hand side. Gags will be floating left and right, and he's been trying to link up with Dom Young a lot. And if Dom Young gets a little bit of space down that touchline, he's away. So Gags could profit on both sides of the field. It's also maybe a bit of that hedge play that if the Knights go well, and at the expense of the Raiders, and the Raiders aren't that good, maybe Dane Gagai has been amongst those points and kicked some goals, or maybe even scored a try himself. There's no real stats that point to it other than just the way he plays his footy. He'll get his run meters, he'll get his tackle breaks. It won't be flashy. He might not score, but he could still walk away with a decent 40 or a 50 without it really seeming like he did too much.
Well, I think that the stats that really support that is that, like you said, the last two games, he's averaged almost 75 points across those last two games, really, at fullback, and that's obviously a lot higher than what he has in the centres. The other thing that I thought was really interesting in that game against the Warriors is, we probably talked earlier in the season about how Dane Gagai's just probably lost a bit of his speed. He's probably just a step and a half behind, I think, than what he used to be. It seemed like he was rejuvenated, that he was a young Dane Gagai again, the way that he was running the ball against the Warriors. And I think he made sort of a half line break, and he looked like he was going to get away, and he looked quite fast through the middle there. So, yeah, he seems to be, sort of playing a different style of footy now with him at the back, and he's doing a really good job there. So, again, it's probably a bit of a calculated risk as well. The other thing that's interesting is probably that previous years, we would have seen the Raiders get to that halftime score and probably give up and end up being a big blowout game. But we've seen that a number of times where they've let teams score 20-odd points and then they've come back quite easily. We saw it twice against the Titans earlier in the season as well. So I think that's maybe just the way the Raiders are playing at the moment. They know that they can back their defence and they know they can grind out a game, so they don't mind letting a few points in to begin with. So it could be a tough day out for the Knights potentially. I would say after the adrenaline of that Warriors game as well, and having to back up against a tough Raiders side could be interesting. All righty, before we move on to wingers. Oh, sorry, mate. You go.
Yeah, you're right. No, you can go.
I was just going to welcome the casual athlete into the show tonight. He's got a YTB up, and he's also mentioned that he can't bring himself to bench Herbie, even with the bye. So, look, to be honest, you never know. Getting a donut might even be better than a negative score. So maybe that's an option there for the casual athlete. Sorry, mate, I interrupted you. What were you going to say there?
No, I just thought Sticky's game plan was to make sure that the opposition scores a couple of tries early. So we're behind by, 2 or 3 tries, and now you boys have to dig in and get yourself out of this hole. So I think it's really clever coaching, instilling, a bit of resilience in the Raiders pack and the Raiders team before finals. I think it's really clever, and giving the other team a false sense of security, and then completely, dashing their hopes and dreams of an upset win over the Raiders. G'day, Longy. Thanks for joining us, mate. You are now in the draw for a potential football pack.
Hey, how good.
Just a reminder, anyone who's currently in that live stream, anyone who's currently watching along, make sure you comment, ask us a question, let us know who you're starting in your winger position this week, and you'll go into that wheel spin for a football pack. We know that football just dropped on Game Day Squad today, so there's a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz in the air about football. But our version of football, the best version of football, Rugby League, does not sleep.
That's right.
Wingers still. 3 names there sort of stick out for me. That's Kiraz, Brian To'o, and Zachy Lomax. But for me, we've got a number of decent fullback options. I can only bring myself to play 2 of these blokes.
Yeah.
I don't really know which 2 I want to play. I'm sure the 2 that I pick, I'll probably get one wrong. But which way are you leaning, mate?
Yeah, and the stats suggest one player is going to be better than the other 2, and that's Brian To'o. And so for that reason, I don't really care that he's still a little bit underdone, and we only saw him for 60 minutes last week. He's been named again. So again, I'm leaning to that point that Ivan Cleary obviously is confident that Biz is ready to go. He's matching up against the Tigers, who have allowed an average of 52 to left wingers in the last month. That includes scores from Garrick of 55, from RTS of 56, from Nawaka Nitawazi 91. So there's definitely upside there for To'o. I'll be keeping an eye on that late mail though, just in case he does get ruled out 24 hours before or even an hour before kickoff. So I do my best to post all the teams in Discord. I might not be able to get to that this weekend. I don't know if I'll have a huge amount of reception where I'm going this weekend. I've got a bit of a business trip, unfortunately. So I'm not sure how much I will get to, but I'll do my best to make sure I update everyone. And if that does happen and eventuates, there's probably an easy pivot for me, I think. And it's someone that you've got on that list, but they're not that top three, and that's Sione Katoa. I think that's quite an easy pivot. We've already talked about a number of Sharks players up against a woeful Rabbitohs side. And the Rabbitohs have been giving up actually both sides of the field for wingers an average of between 40 and 50 GDS points across the last month. So Katoa or Muatalo might be some options there. I'd probably be leaning Katoa though. Right side against the Rabbits, they've allowed 50 GDS points in the last month to that side. So if that To'o news does come out and he's not starting, he's not playing, then that's probably an easy pivot option for me. It then comes down to whether I look at Carraz or Lomax. Both have some pretty poor matchup data. The Broncos have allowed only an average of 26 points to the right wingers in the last month, and Manly have done the same, only allowed 26 to the right wingers in the last month as well. So I think I'm just going to lean on Carraz because I know that he probably has the base and power. Sort of that way that he plays his game. He's got those 200 running meters per game. He's got those 5 tackles. And the most important stats for him are the tackle breaks and the offloads. He's registering 6 tackle breaks per game this season and almost 4 offloads per game. So he's ranked 6th in wingers for tackle breaks and 1st for offloads. So I think for me, just based on that, he's got a slight edge over Lomax at the moment. So in summing that all up, I'm going Carraz and To'o with a potential pivot to Sione Katoa if needed.
You got a bit of backing here in the chat. You've got Tom H backing you in for Carraz and To'o. Harrison is going for Carraz and To'o as well. Got a couple of different opinions here. Matty P's going for Lomax and To'o, and Michael Cozzi, Carraz and Nawanga Nitawaze. Look, that matchup against the Storm, I'd be looking at the left winger for the Roosters there. I think the Storm are vulnerable on their right, and they have been all season. So look, a Dan Tupou shout is probably something that could pay off for those that like a bit of a gamble. But yeah, look, if you can pot up in your wings and it comes off like a Nawanga Nitawaze or a Taylor May, like some might chase last week's points, if it comes off for you, well done. But yeah, look, Carraz looks like that safe pick. We know he's going to get his run meters. We know he's going to break tackles. If the Dogs are on and Critter finds half a gap, he knows how good Carraz is and he's going to get the ball to him. So yeah, there's plenty of attacking upside there. Bizarre, is he fit? He only got through 60 minutes last week. A lot of the ball went left, but Cleary does return now, so you'd expect that attack to straighten up a little bit and be even across both sides of the field. So yeah, look, I hope we've got a fit and firing Brian To'o. I did play him last week, and I think that difference between him and Zachy Lomax, I shouldn't complain too much. I was, finished pretty nicely for a lot of those competitions, but just wondering what could have been if I went that Zachy Lomax and just watch To'o for a week to make sure that his return from injury was good. But what happened last week was last week. I just know that if I change over to Lomax, which I'm leaning at the moment, then it's just going to be the absolute reverse. So I'm probably going to stick with Brian To'o. But as you can see through the chat there, we've got 6 or 7 comments, and 4 or 5 of them are pretty different combinations already. So look, it might be another one of those situations where you're just trying to get the guy that's going to score the tries. And at the end of it, if they don't score tries, there's probably not going to be too much scoring difference between them. But yeah, I think you can go just about any of those 6 options and come out okay. Just someone's got to score points for the Sharks. Who's it going to be? Why can't it be someone like Sione Katoa bagging a hat trick out there on the wing and still getting a 43?
Yeah, exactly. And that'll be the problem. It'll be Brayley scoring big. It'll be Hines scoring big, and Katoa just getting his 40 odd. Tom H is thinking about following that Mad May big score that he got last week in his return from his exile from NRL, I guess we could call it. And he comes up against a club who sacked him. It might be an option. For me, I think Penrith are just too good, and they are looking like even getting better now. So I'm just going to wait a week and have a look again at how Taylor May plays. It is confusing for a lot of new people as well. There is 2 Team A's in the Tigers, so you've got to make sure you are looking at the correct Team A score and maybe check out the position of each of those Team A's to make sure you're playing the right one.
Yeah, no, there is no cheat code. You can't get Terrell May in your wing. I'm tipping a bit of a fire encounter there. I'm tipping Taylor May 10 minutes in the sin bin.
Ooh,
Fullbacks.
Okay, there you go. And you don't want that. New people,
No.
You do not want Taylor May to get a sin bin if you've got him. Alrighty, let's get into fullbacks. Where are you looking at this week, mate?
Start of the week, I thought this was going to be really tricky getting 3 players from a pretty decent list. You know, there's probably 7 or 8 blokes that could be seen as viable starts, but I think when it comes down to it, I think James Tedesco, Dylan Edwards, and Scotty Drinkwater are the 3, and I think fairly clearly ahead of the others. The Tedesco matchup with the Storm on paper, like we've said all night long, looks tough, but look, the Storm are vulnerable to fullbacks. They're giving up plenty of points, and we know that the Storm are a little bit weakened with no Pappy Still, no Cam Munster, who obviously provides a lot of leadership and a lot of go forward in attack. But that could mean there's a bit more vulnerability there for someone like Teddy to capitalise. Teddy doesn't normally go 2 poor matches in a row. We've seen the 1 poor match for this season, I think, from James Tedesco last week. And for that reason, I feel like some coaches might want to jump off him and look for someone else. They might say Teddy's lost it. Teddy's not going to be back amongst the scoring. But I think you've got some data that's going to back that up shortly as well. And just quickly, I think the matchup there, Edwards potentially with the kicking tee against the Tigers with Nathan Cleary back. Yes, please. And then Scotty Drinkwater, the Dragons have been a bit of a basket case against fullbacks as well. KO Weeks, his breakout game where everyone wanted to flock to him in all forms of fantasy competitions. And he hasn't really, hit those heights since. But look, there's no secret that was against the Dragons. They're pretty vulnerable through the middle there. Scotty Drinkwater will pull them apart. Their left edge defensively is really weak now as well. They've got a brand new centre and wing combination. Scotty Drinkwater's left to right pass is one of the best in the competition. So I can see him getting plenty of points that way. He'll kick goals, and I think he'll score a try or 2 this round as well.
Yeah, mate, I think we've got the exact same 3 fullbacks there, and probably for good reasons. Like you said, I think a number of coaches might look at Teddy's performance last week and go, nah, not for me. I'm going to look elsewhere, particularly up against the Melbourne Storm side. To put that in perspective, Teddy recorded his equal lowest base and power of this season last week against the Sharks with 130 metres, 4 tackles and 3 tackle breaks. So that's his lowest base and power. He had an equal game earlier in the season, and then he hadn't had one like that before since the start of last season. So, like you said, it doesn't happen too often for Teddy. So I expect him to bounce back against the Storm side, who you said that they look like a tough matchup on paper, but targeting a fullback against the Storm is a really good option. The Storm have allowed 55 GDS points on average to fullbacks across the last month, which is 10 points. A 10-point increase from their season average. That includes a 79 for Latrell, and then that person that we spoke about before, and Drinkwater, he scored a 65 as well over the last couple of weeks. So the Storm are definitely vulnerable there. They just do a really good job to also score points themselves, and I think Teddy will want to back up his poor performance from the previous week and come out and have a big game, especially on the Thursday night. The other player I'm pretty happy in playing, and I think he may be 100% played this week, potentially, is Dylan Edwards after that massive game last week. He had 305 running meters, 7 tackles, 11 tackle breaks, 5 goals, 1 try assist, and 2 tries, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I think, this week again, it's a dangerous Panthers side up against the West Tigers. Pretty much the Panthers are full strength, and I think that could be an absolute cricket score based on that matchup data. I think Edwards will still have a massive part to play in that. The Tigers have allowed an average of 50 GDS points to fullbacks in the last month, which again is a 5-point increase from their season average. And then that last player, Scotty Drinkwater, I'm also on him as well, and I think he'll have a big impact against the Dragons, like you talked about. We saw KO Weeks have a massive 109. We saw a couple of other scores of 64 and 52. We did see Connor Tracy's poor 28 a few weeks ago, but if we take that out, the Dragons have been absolutely woeful up against the fullbacks, and they've been averaging almost 60 points in the last month. And so I think for me, Drinkwater's also been averaging 60 points in his last month as well, against some good defensive sides, against the Storm, against the Bulldogs. So I think here it's just a no-brainer. The best thing I like about Drinky is, as you said, he's got that awesome pass that, and it ends up being a try assist, and he's averaging 1 try assist per game on top of his base and power through running meters, tackles, tackle breaks, etc. He kicks goals. So lock him in for a vulnerable defensive team like the Dragons. Outside of those, Turbo's an option. Walsh is probably an option. I'd probably keep an eye on Walsh for next week. They come up against the Rabbitohs, so maybe earmark Walsh for then. My risky pod, and I'm going to make it really clear, it's my pod of the week, but it is a huge risk, and that's the Sharks fullback and Will Kennedy. We speak at length about the vulnerability of the Rabbitohs fullbacks. We talked about it last week. It eventuated with Dylan Edwards, and I think, like we said, it only gets worse for the Bunnies. They're leading the comp with the average points allowed to fullbacks of 62 for the season, or a massive 79 average across the last month that they're allowing to fullbacks. Kennedy's a risk, though, because of the way that he accumulates GDS points. He's had a ceiling of 60. That's his highest score of the season. The Rabbits, Kennedy came up against the Rabbits earlier in the year in round 3, and he ran for 187 meters, had 3 tackle breaks, and scored a try, and ended up on 51 points. So I guess that's where the risk is. There's certainly opportunity up against the Rabbitohs, but that risk is that Kennedy is just not like some of the other fullbacks that we can play, and that how they accumulate points is a lot nicer and a lot more fantasy relevant.
So there's an asterisk there saying he's got an excellent matchup, but the recommendation is do not play because he will not accumulate fantasy points for you. Look, if you want to bring him up next week and say your pod play went absolutely nuts, I'm not going to listen to it unless he's in one of your teams. So unless you can prove to me with a screenshot, there will be a no Will Kennedy mentioned podcast next week if he happens to go 60 or 70 and defy all odds.
I'll tell you now, he is in my challenger side at the moment. So I will send you a screenshot of that, because I do make sure I put my money where my mouth is, and I don't just throw out a pod without playing him myself, although the challenger comp now for me is probably my least favored comp. So I'm just going to stick with that.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Someone is playing a Will Kennedy card this weekend. Who would have thought? All right, okay. On screen. Gee, not a lot of difference between our sides. As always, there's likely to be a number of changes, and we'll probably end up having 4 or 5 differences. But you can see Dill's gone Garrick over my Gagai, and his Jamal Fogarty over my Jerome Hughes. But obviously the Classic Cup, it all comes down to how you're going to use your salary as well. We've got a bit of our thoughts into the blokes that we're going to spend some higher salary on, namely in that front row and maybe in the halfback position as well. But that's certainly where you can get an advantage over your competition, both in your Classic Cup matchup or just on that leaderboard. So I think the advice is always think about who's going to be the top 3 or 4 scoring players from your team and prioritize the salary for them. If you've got someone risky that could go nuts, you could want to throw a bit of salary on them, but it might be best throwing just a bronze version of them in, just in case it turns pear-shaped. Dill, your success across week round 20 continued with another win in Brodown Showdown. That means we're is 13-7 now?
It is 13-7.
13-7, and we've worked out that if you go on
I think we lost you there. He was about to say, I think if I go on a 6-game winning streak, it will end up 13 all, and it will come down to the last round of the competition, which would be massive. I'm a little bit nervous about going 6-0, but we will see how we go over the next couple of weeks. Stewie looks like he's just dropped his internet out, so we'll get back to that soon. What we will do, though, is because we had a win there, or because I had a win, I should say, in the Bro Down Showdown. It means everyone who nominated me in the comments, either live or post the show going up on YouTube, you have now been entered into the draw to win some cards. So we are going to jump across to the wheel, and let's see if that will come up for us. Hopefully you can see that on screen now, and we are going to spin that wheel to see who's winner. So good luck, everyone that commented my name. Let's see what you are going to win. Or is it going to go across? Yes, it is. Epic Eka. Congratulations, Epic Eka. Well done for commenting me. I'm now going to jump across, and we are going to open a 3-player rare pack. So hopefully that is up on screen now for you. Let's just double check, make sure that's there. Beautiful. And let's open that. Oh, it's going to need me to refresh. Doesn't like it. Here we go. Let's get some internet refreshed. And at the same time we do that, we have Stu back as well. Welcome back, mate.
My apologies for that. Did you let the audience know what happened?
No, I just said you dropped out, but you can explain why.
Oh, no, I didn't have my laptop plugged in the charger, and it came up with you've got 10% battery left warning. It gave me about 3% battery, and then it decided to shut down. All right, so this is
so lesson learned. Remember to charge. Here we go. So we spun the wheel, and we had a winner there on screen in Epic Eka, and I'm going to take 2 cards here, and I'm going to give Epic Eka one of those. So we've opened a 3-player rare, and I'm going to give him that middle card, and it's a Royce Hunt. That's pretty horrible. So let's see if I can give him another card. Poor old Roycey. Dylan Lucas, wow. I'm going to give you that one there, Epic Eka. I know that he won't find the field again this season, but that could be massive next season. And then to finish off that pack, we've got a Kai Pearce-Paul, and it looks like a comment from Walkie. I missed the Spotify comment from Walkie, so I will give him that Kai Pearce-Paul to make up for it. Apologies there, Walkie. Sorry about that, mate. I must have missed the comment.
All right, let me get...
But it's easy as that. All you need to do is comment who you think is going to win the Bro Down Showdown. So as we said, I need to have 6 wins in a row for me to have an opportunity to tie it up and end up with the final round. So if Stu wins one more, that is the season done and dusted for me. This week we have spun the wheel, and we're going a middle, a winger, and then a fullback as well. So if you think that my choices of May, To'o, and Drinkwater are going to get up, please comment deal. If you think Stu is going to win with Haas, Kiraz, and Edwards, you comment him. And remember, it's a head-to-head. So the middles playing off against each other, the wingers playing off against each other, and then the fullbacks as well. It's not a cumulative score. So if you think, I'm going to win with those, comment me. If you think Stu is going to win, make sure you comment him. Unreal. Oh, good on you. Look, Walkie, mate, you are a lot of honesty there. He actually said Stu. He was mistaken. Thank you for your honesty, mate. I was going to say I'm pretty sharp most times, but I understand. We've got a comment straight away. Jay Boney is in for Stu. Boney, with that comment, not only do you go into the Bro Down Showdown comp, you also go into our pack comp that we're about to open right now, which is the brand new football competition. Do you want to quickly talk to the viewers about the football competition while I get that wheel sorted?
Absolutely, mate. Just as another vote for Stu comes in, we've got Harrison going for Stu and Ryan. Ryan's gone Dill. So we've got a couple of votes coming in for Bro Down Showdown already. Yeah, mate. Football launched today, this afternoon. The Discord servers were going nuts with everyone showing off all the legends that they were packing. But look, we've got about 23 days to go until that English football season does start. So what a great time to get in there and start ripping up some football packs. We've got a 3-player rare pack that we're going to give away. We mentioned it at the top of the show, just for joining us here in the comments. Anyone that said something in the live show will have a chance to win that 3-player rare pack, and that'll go a long way to getting that football team started. Look, Dill and I, we won't lie. We don't know as much about the English Premier League football as we do rugby league. But look, the 38-week or 38-round season is certainly going to bring, I think, a lot of late nights for the both of us, but certainly increase our knowledge of that competition. We got a number of guesses for both picks for both Stu and Dill coming through. It looks pretty even, probably just in my favour. I think this might be the week with the most input, Dill, and that's mainly, I think, maybe because we've got another free pack to give away. Geez, it wouldn't be a Fantasy Bros episode without some packs to give away. How's that wheel looking?
Love it. Yep, looks pretty good. I'm pretty sure I've got everyone. So I've got Walkie, I've got Tom H, Skip, Cozzy, Rainsy, Mel, Matt P, Ryan P, Harrison, and Jay Boney. I've also got the casual athlete who got in before, and Tom H, which I think I said as well. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we've got a 1 in 11 chance here. Let's spin that wheel, shall we? Let's do it. While I'm spinning the wheel, the other thing, obviously you said there's some late nights or early mornings for us. It's great to see that Stan Sport has picked up the English Premier League. We're not affiliated with Stan Sport, but if anyone out there from Stan Sport is watching and would like to sponsor us, we'd love to get you on board. It'd be unreal. Alrighty, spinning the wheel, and we have Skipper. Well done, Skip. I think it just ticked over before away from you. So well done. So I'm going to jump across to the brand new tab with football written on it at the top there. I'm going to share.
Oh, look at it. It is
we
nice.
Should be able to see. Unreal. And I'm going to scroll down, and we've got a 3-player rare that we are going to open right now. All 3 cards going straight to that man, Skip. Here we go. What have we got? All right, kicking us off, we have a Dobbin. We've got a Emerson and a O'Reilly, and that is a platinum there. So a great little start to your collection there, Skip. Make sure you comment, send us a message in Discord, and we'll get those cards to you. Well done, mate.
For those not around football, Dill, can you give us a bit of insight to those 3 players?
I cannot. I have no idea whatsoever. I'm looking forward to learning a lot. I'll let a little secret out. We are not hosting the fantasy show for the football, but I cannot wait to jump on board and jump in. They obviously released the prize structure today, and it's looking pretty juicy with that 50K across the rounds and season. So I'm looking forward to that. Look, I'm not going to lie. GDS is really changing the face of fantasy sport and the way it's done. And I really applaud Cal and Tom for all the work that they're putting in. And I know it's frustrating sometimes with those scores not working or apps not updating, but it's unreal to get a massive sport like EPL, like football in. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's incredible, mate. And one new sport closer to getting the NFL on board as well. Look, I don't know how.
Fingers crossed.
I don't know how some people do all of those sports. We do rugby league, obviously the Big Bash, and that takes up just about all of our time. And now we've got to juggle the English football as well. You do a bit of IPL. I know that there are some people out there that also do the AFL and the basketball on top of that. And yeah, the football is just about a full year commitment. So if you've got a significant other, and you've got about 3 weeks until that football season starts, to make sure you let them know that you still love them. But GameDay Squad is a full 12-month year-round platform now, and it's certainly the priority for a lot of us. Thanks everyone for joining us once again. Loved the chat as always in the comment section. Hopefully we've steered you into a couple of good picks for this week so that you can get climbing up that leaderboard in both the season-long and weekly competitions. If you're still alive in the Classic Cup, good luck. Dill, good luck to you, mate. Flying the flag, as always, for the Fantasy Bros. Good luck, everyone. Thanks for joining us once again. We'll catch you for round 22. Geez, the end of season is very close. Let's do as best we can to stay high up in those rankings. We'll see you next Wednesday, July 30 at 7 p.m. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Good luck for round 21.
Thank you.
See you next time.